Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. We're meeting on Thursday, February 10, 2022, 2 o'clock, conference room 325. We have a number of items on our bill today, on our agenda today. First one is HB 1580, Vice Chair.
First up, we have HB 1580 relating to criminal procedure. We have two testifiers today, one with comments, one in opposition. First up, AG's office with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Corey Young, and I'm a Deputy Attorney General speaking on behalf of the department. The bill actually would provide a very good tool during this pandemic period for the court to more broadly use video, two-way video evidence and two-way video testimony. Our concern, though, is under what circumstances that video testimony would be taken. Currently, the bill provides for two situations where we would see that video being taken. Number one, with the consent of the defendant, or number two, with a finding of necessity by the court. Of course, the committee's notes and everything are very clear that the committee is cognizant of protecting the defendant's right to confrontation. So the defendant's consent is actually very important, but we would be asking that the committee add language that would make the consent of the prosecution, the prosecutors or the deputy attorney generals or whoever is representing the state, a condition of allowing the testimony as well. What we're concerned about is basically a flood of unvetted, kind of unidentified witnesses being able to sit back, who knows where, and just inject reasonable doubt into trials without the normal safeguards allowed to be implemented. Usually we would be able to try and interview these witnesses or at least have them present in open court where their identities would be more confirmable. Even their locations would be able to be confirmed. Without basically allowing consent for the state, we're in a position where the defense can offer witnesses who may or may not have been present, who may or may not be identifiable, who could be outside of Hawaii and outside of our jurisdiction to prosecute for should they lie. And we will have basically no safeguards from the prosecution side to stop those witnesses. I'll stand ready for any questions, but thank you for this opportunity to give comments.
Yeah, thank you. Next up, we have public defenders in opposition.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm James Novak with Public Defender's Office. We are opposed to this bill. I think any attempt to apply this rule is going to be found unconstitutional for two reasons. One, the confrontation clause, especially under the Hawaii Constitution, and since Washington v. Crawford in 2004, confrontation should be face-to-face, or must be face-to-face. Number two, the reason is that the jury or the trier of fact, whether it be a judge or a jury, needs to be face-to-face with the witness. And the reason is that to judge credibility properly, it should be in person rather than through this video that we have, like we're doing at this point. Also want to address the safeguards that were very much built in. I think it's covered in my testimony. Number one, it's not practical because the attorney cannot be in two places at one time, next to his defendant, next to his client, as well as at the location of where the witness is. Just logistically, it would mean that if it was ever allowed, the jury would there'd have to be a break in trial, a day or two, for the attorney to travel, set up, and then obviously come back. And this constitutional problem of having the attorney away from the defendant, because as I alluded to in my testimony, written testimony, there's a right to effective assistance of counsel requires the right to confer. And the two cases I cited there kind of discuss that in detail as to why that's so important. Not in my written testimony is some practical concerns is that when, like for myself, I'm appearing by video, a witness can have all sorts of aids in front of them without us knowing, because they're not supposed to have able to refer to things, read things, or be coached or whatnot. And all all those safeguards are just not there as well. So for all those reasons, we oppose this testimony, and I am available for any questions if there are. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to HB 1571 HD1. This is relating to COVID-19 vaccination status. I want to make a note here that the bill really involves falsely representing your vaccination status either by vaccination card or by misrepresenting your vaccination status to an entity. A lot of the testimony we received does not touch on this and is irrelevant. So if you do have testimony today, I'm going to ask that you keep it germane to the bill at hand. This is not a vaccine mandate bill. Doesn't even touch on that. So if you do start going off course, we are going to have to cut you off and ask for testimony specifically on this bill. First up, we have the Department of the Attorney General with comments.
Good morning again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We did submit comments on this matter, and we're hoping that if the committee is willing to entertain the making of this violation criminal, that we would be able to submit a redraft of the bill for consideration. We do consider this a very important area that the bill covers. The false representation of vaccination information, especially in this day and age, where it is critical that we be able to ascertain whether someone is vaccinated or not. It's going to not grow less important, it's going to grow more important. So this bill really does respond to an essential need. I'll stand ready for any questions by the committee, but I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the department.
Okay, thank you. And as a reminder, please keep your videos off until we call you. And as another reminder, testimony is limited to 2 minutes, just out of respect for all the other testifiers. All right, we have a number of individuals who submitted testimony. First up, we have, I believe it's pronounced Michelle Melendez. And just a reminder, please keep your video off. I see a number of people who still have it on until we call you. Michelle, last call, or it's pronounced, it's spelled Mishdell. I'm not sure if that's a typo. Okay, moving on, Donna Dufault in opposition.
Thank you, aloha. Eo mai kaike mai luna mai e, ona meo huna no e ao, ona mele e, eo mai, eo mai, eo mai e. May the wisdom and the knowledge of the seen and unseen be granted to us now and all the legislation, all the people of Hawaii, so that wisdom may prevail and we may be pono. I oppose HB 1571. The COVID vaccine should not even be on the agenda, anything to do with it. On January 13 of this year, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled against mandatory vaccines for businesses.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you right there. This is not a mandatory vaccination bill, so please keep it germane to the bill at hand.
Okay. You are violating, insisting on a vaccine passport is in violation of our—
Again, this is not a vaccine passport bill. If you keep it germane to the bill at hand.
Chair, would you let the testifier testify, please?
She is not testifying on the bill, though, Representative Ward.
I'm opposed to the bill, sir. I'm opposed to vaccines being a mandate and people being forced to have vaccines.
This is not, I'm sorry, this committee is going to get out of control if people are testifying on things not related to the bill. So if you have testimony on specifically on what the bill addresses, please proceed. But if you do not, then you can state your opposition to the bill generally, and we're going to need to move on.
Okay, apparently I'm unclear. The bill is about falsifying vaccine passports. Is that correct?
Nothing to do with vaccine passports, but it is about falsifying vaccination cards.
Mm-hmm. Well, let it be for the record, I oppose it, and the vaccine passports are against our rights and requiring medical information.
And this is irrelevant again. One more chance.
I have nothing
Anything
further.
to do with the bill?
Oppose it,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Elizabeth Diamond in opposition.
Hi. Hello.
Please proceed.
Am I on?
Is this Elizabeth Diamond?
Yes, it is. Hi.
Please proceed.
I oppose this bill. While falsifying anything is wrong and immoral, this bill has simply a faulty presupposition as a foundation. As such, as trying to give a strength of law to an unlegislated item, such as the COVID vaccine. So just this morning, I thought I like mocha. So to see the analogy, as if the government mandated that everyone must drink mocha, and then made a law.
Ms. Diamond, this is not a vaccine mandate bill, and we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. If you can get closer to your mic.
To pay fines for lying about the drinking. Such action would not uphold the integrity of our legislative process, as vaccination is voluntary, just as you said it earlier. So in addition, the language of this bill is open for interpretation that could easily become authoritarian and subjective determination, what someone is believing as truth with regards to their intimate religious beliefs or health status, which in the first place is a private matter by our constitution, stating medical condition and religious beliefs are voluntary anywhere, for travel, for work, for church, for commerce, with regard to COVID vaccine. So I ask this legislative body to continue uphold your oath to defend and support the Constitution of the United States and end this attempt to thwart it, to simply try to give strength of law and try and legalize mandate that is not legislated through this back door. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Amy F. in opposition. That's ECK. Okay, last call for Amy. Moving on, Anastasia Thomas in opposition. Last call for Anastasia. Okay, next up we have Banner, oh, not going to pronounce this last name right. Banner Fanene in opposition.
Chairs and committee members. My name is Banner S. Fanene, collectively a 20-year resident of Hawaii, 11 years now on Oahu, 3 years at Wahiawa. I am originally from Pongo Pongo, American Samoa. I'm a veteran of the United States military. My dad also served. My son served 4 combat tours before the age of 21. So the US Constitution has lots of meaning for me. It's a sacred writing. HB 1571 ignores my constitutional rights on where I shop, how I worship. That violates my medical privacy. Bill 1571 is irresponsible, poorly written, and government overreach, as it disregards my liberty as a US citizen. I oppose strongly Bill 1571. Prayers and blessings to everyone. Mahalo and aloha.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Jennifer Van Lenen in opposition. Okay, last call for Jennifer. Okay, moving on to Melody Reyes in opposition. Last call for Melody. Okay, we have someone with just the first name here, Thomas, in opposition. No last name, but if there's a Thomas who did not put a last name, you're up.
Well, I'm a Thomas, but I have a last name both on my testimony.
What is your last name, Thomas? Maybe you're somewhere else.
My last name is Milsarek.
Okay, actually, you know, you're the only Thomas on here, so why don't you go ahead with your testimony? Are you in opposition?
Okay. I am in strong opposition to this bill.
Please proceed.
And I would like to just state my disappointment in the what I consider censoring of testimony. As Representative Ward requested that the other woman be allowed to say what she wanted to say about this bill, and I may be censored myself, I have a feeling.
This
But
is, if your
in my
testimony germane to
opinion,
this bill, you can proceed.
in my opinion, this bill has no basis in reality, given the fact that this vaccine is indisputably the most harmful, injurious, deadly vaccine ever conceived and put onto human beings. So the people that falsify their records to try to get out of this vaccine have very valid reasons for doing so. They're taking their life in their hands to take this vaccine, and this fact can't be disputed. In my written testimony, I would try to submit some documentation to back up what I just said, but it wouldn't allow you to do both. So I am requesting the ability to submit testimony to this committee and to the legislator on what I'm talking about, that this is in fact by far the deadliest and most injurious vaccine ever conceived and put on human beings. And that being the case, this bill shouldn't even be being considered. To force something that deadly on the population, that gives many people who are intelligent good reason to falsify records. They don't want to be injured or killed. So that's my testimony. And I just request that this committee and this legislator start looking at all the facts on this issue, because it's not being done. And that's what we pay you to do. That's your job. And I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Next up, we have Robert Rudy Novak in opposition. Okay, last call for Robert. And just a note, testifiers, Thomas's testimony was germane to it. He was talking about the falsifying vaccine records. The previous testifier was talking about a vaccine mandate and all kinds of other things. So as long as you keep it on the subject matter of the bill, your testimony will be fine. Next up, we have John Gray in opposition. Last call for John.
Sorry to interrupt. May I ask you something?
Have you already testified?
Yes,
your voice sounds familiar. Okay, I'm sorry. We're not allowing people to test another chance to testify, especially before everyone else is gone.
Just want to
It's
ask,
not fair.
excuse me, I raised hand.
Okay, mute her, please. Next up, we have Lauren Kidd in opposition.
Excuse me. Hand. Hello?
Okay, we're going to have to remove you from this committee hearing if you keep interrupting. We're not allowing people to have multiple testimonies and cut in line before everyone else. That's not fair to everyone else who's waiting.
You need to remind people to unmute themselves. That's your job.
Yep. All right, next up, we have Lauren Kidd in opposition. Last call for Lauren. Okay, next up we have, I'm sorry, in advance, Malama Manuela Chamberlain in opposition. Last call for Malama. Okay, next up we have Andrea Sparks in opposition. Last call for Andrea. Okay, next up we have Mary Arizumi in opposition.
Hi, let me unmute and unmuting. Representative Matayoshi, I wanted to ask, can we add further rules and requirements, stipulations to a mandate and I don't understand the point
Is
because a
this
mandate is
Mary
not.
speaking?
Can you hear me?
Yep, is this Mary?
Yes, it is.
Okay, please proceed.
Uh, I'll take off the, start my video. Let's see. Can we add further rules and requirements, stipulations to a mandate and make it law? I mean, the foundation
Mary,
is.
this is testimony, so you can suggest, you are obviously free to suggest things to us, but we can't do this is not really a question and answer period, but you're welcome to testify for 2 minutes on this bill.
I guess I don't understand that this law does not have a foundation because we're trying to build it on a mandate, which is not a law. That's just my understanding. Can you correct me or clarify that, or not at this time?
This bill, again, as I've stated in for other testifiers, this bill is not a vaccine mandate. It has nothing to do with the vaccine mandate. You're welcome to review the bill as it's written.
I did, but I understand it is a mandate, is it not?
I literally just said it was not.
Oh, I understand it's a mandate, not a law. That's all. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So
You're welcome to.
it should be null and void. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all the testifiers we have today. Members, any questions?
Chair, I have a question. Chair,
Yep, go ahead, Rep. Ward.
let me see if I can get my camera on. Okay. I'm not sure how many of the bill's authors or those who understand it, or if anyone on this call can respond to the question of why is the church mentioned in the first or second paragraph?
Yeah, Rep. Ward, I can answer that question as the
Okay,
bill's author.
please.
So churches are mentioned just as a list of entities where an individual cannot misrepresent their vaccination status too. That's all.
But okay, why not bars and amusement parks then? I mean, why? My point is,
it's everybody, Rep. Ward.
Well, exactly, which you could make it generic, but the fact that you put churches in there and the attorney general is going to be the enforcer, to bring an attorney general into a church is really overstepping the boundaries, and that is to me a poison pill in the bill. They should just take the pill out. I mean, take the churches out of there to make it not a poison pill. So I'm not testifying, but I would hope somebody in the legal community, or maybe that's you, Vice Chair, who has the responsibility. Why would you say the churches are in there? Because you want to make it all inclusive? Or are you targeting because some churches are anti-vaxxers?
So, Rep. Ward, we can discuss this, but this is probably not the appropriate time to do this. The
I'll come back to it later.
Office does enforce laws in churches, though.
Okay,
Many
let's proceed.
laws are enforced in churches. Any other questions, members? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to HB 2187, relating to the University of Hawaii Board of Regents. We have one testifier today in support, the Board of Regents.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Board of Regents will stand on its testimony in support of the measure.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to HB 1560, relating to the Board of Education. First up, we have Hawaii Kids Can in support.
Aloha. Can you folks hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Hawaii Kids Can strongly supports HB 1560 HD1. The Hawaii Board of Education is an incredibly important policymaking body and is the only board of education in the state. I want to commend the great folks serving on the board. However, I believe there is a tremendous opportunity for the board to be better equipped to guide our education system into 2022 and well beyond. Hawaii is facing an existential crisis as we continue to lose population and many of our bright young people to the mainland. School and learning can't look the way it has been for the past 100 years, and our students need an education system that reflects this complex reality. More than ever, the traditional silos of K-12, higher education, and the workforce must come down. The margin of error continues to get smaller for our kids to graduate the skills needed to survive and thrive in Hawaii. That is why it's so vital we have representation on the board of folks who can bring a cross-sector perspective of learning and pathways. Unfortunately, these perspectives and backgrounds have been few and far between on the Board of Education. HB 1560 HD1 finally creates some measure of accountability for our Board of Education to reflect this diversity of thought and expertise that will ultimately benefit our kids and state. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Members, we also have the Board of Education submitting comments and another individual, Amy Sun, in support, but neither are here to testify today. Members, any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to HB 1775 HD1 relating to civil rights. First up, we have the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission in support.
Hello, Chair. Aloha, Vice Chair. Bill Hoshijo for the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission. You have our written testimony in support of House Bill 1775, House Draft 1. We'll stand on the written testimony, but I did want to offer one substantive comment. As we were preparing and reviewing the bill for this hearing, we caught a potential, what looks like a drafting problem that we didn't catch before. So I apologize for the lateness in raising this. Calling your attention to the amended 368, section 368D1B on page 23 of House Draft 1. The list of prohibited conduct is incomplete, I think, because it doesn't include sexual orientation discrimination, sexual orientation harassment, or other sexual orientation-based violence in the list of prohibited conduct. And so that's something that we wanted to call to the committee's attention.
Okay, any further testimony?
No, oh, sorry.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Department of Education with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and members of the committee. Sean Bacon, Interim Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Talent Management, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the Department of Ed. The department stands on its written testimony and support and is offering comments for House Bill 1775, House Draft 1. We thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have Keith Hayashi here with comments as well, but I'm assuming the previous testifier spoke for him already. So we will move on. Keith, if you're there, unmute yourself now. Okay. Next up, we have the Stonewall Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii in support.
Good afternoon, Michael Gloy, Jr., Chair of the Stonewall Caucus, the Democratic Party of Hawaii. We stand in support of this legislation, but we do echo Bill Hoshijo's concerns. If you just make sure that the list is complete, because harassment and discrimination of the LGBTQI plus community is one of the last bastions of socially acceptable discrimination out there. And so we encourage you to make sure that our community is protected. Mahalo.
Yep, thank you. Next, we have AAUW of Hawaii in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and the members of the committee. My name is Youngyu Overly, and I volunteer as the Public Policy Chair for AAUW of Hawaii. Thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of HB 1775, House Draft 1. During the Education Committee hearing, there were concerns in regards to expanding the definition that's included in HB 1775, but I would ask you to consider the potential risks of not expanding the definition. In the new Title IX rules, sexual harassment is defined as any unwelcome conduct that a reasonable person would find so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it denies a person equal educational access. What does this really mean in a real situation? So for example, one of my son's friends in a PhD program went MIA last semester because of the harassment by his advisor. Another friend, also in PhD program, is considering dropping out because of harassment by her advisor. Neither of these students are at UH, but this is a story much too common. So without expanded definition, I'm afraid that sexual harassment reports may get thrown out. So I do want us to remember that the current federal Title IX rules went into effect despite expressed concerns from over 124,000 organizations, institutions, and individuals rolling back the protections for the survivors. So even if these new rules are reversed, the survivors can easily, very easily lose protection again. And this is why 10 states, including California, has passed new rules to codify the old Title IX protections. And in case of California,
If you could start to, it's been 2 minutes. If you could start to conclude your testimony, please.
Okay, thank you. So I would ask that we do the same and consider potential risk. So mahalo nui loa for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks in support. Okay, last call for Hawaii Children's Action Network speaks. Okay, next up, we have the University of Hawaii in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Rose, and I am representing the VP of Administration, Jan Govea. Thank you for the opportunity to testimony. We stand in our written testimony in support. We apologize for our late testimony. And we would like to say that we're very pleased with the work that we are doing with the legislature, particularly the Women's Legislative Caucus and Representative Linda Ichiyama, and really believe that this bill is moving towards a place where we can continue to support and implement Title IX, both the spirit and the letter of it, in collaboration with other stakeholders who are here today. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I will be available for questions.
Thank you. And members, we have a number of other individuals and entities who submitted written testimony, all in support, except for Department of Budget and Finance, which had comments. Members, any questions? Rep. Ichiyama.
Thank you, Chair. Question for DOE, if Assistant Superintendent is still here.
Good afternoon, Rep. Ichiyama. How are you?
Fine. Thank you so much for being here today. I read through your testimony, and I understand that in order to do some of the data collection that we're asking for in this bill, you would need to revise your Chapter 19 forms as well as your student information system. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding. We would need to adjust some of our different forms and some of the way that the information gets inputted into our data collection system. Yes.
Okay. But you're saying that it is possible to do this, that you can make those changes in order to implement, so you would be able to collect the data?
Yes, we would be able to make those changes. Yes.
Okay. Would you anticipate any additional funding needed in order to make those changes?
I would need to get back to you on that, Rep. Ichiyama, to see how the information is collected into our data system and what technology implications may need to be addressed on this, and what the cost may be on addressing those.
Got it. And then how do you currently track your cases that are coming under Title IX? How do you currently track them?
I actually have one of our equity specialists, Nicole Isha Ijima, that's actually here with me today. And I'm going to ask her to speak on that if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Hi, Representative Ichiyama. So right now, in terms of our Title IX cases, our office, the Civil Rights Compliance Branch with the DOE, we keep our own separate log regarding our Title IX cases. So this would include both our student-to-student, student-employee, and our employee-to-employee situations as well.
And is this an electronic database, or do you have to do it all manually?
Right now we're using a Google Sheet to keep track of these of our cases right now.
Have you ever explored a case management system?
So we are looking at different case management systems that came to our attention, and one in particular is the Guardian case management system, but we're still researching our options.
Okay, great. If you wouldn't mind, Nicole and Sean, just getting back to me on, what it would take to implement on the DOE side, the data reporting, that would be really helpful.
We can definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any further questions? Hearing none, we're going to move on to HB 1789, HD1 relating to collective bargaining. First up, we have HSTA in support.
Hi, Mitsuhiga speaking for Wilbert Hope, our Executive Director for Hawaii State Teachers Association. We stand on our testimony in support. Labor should speak for labor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have HGEA in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Michelle Kurihara-Klein on behalf of the Hawaii Government Employees Association and our Executive Director, Randy Pereira. You have our written testimony before you, which is in strong support of the measure. I do want to acknowledge and thank the committee for hearing and passing a similar measure last session. And they will be available to answer any questions that you or the committee may have on this measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Hawaii Labor Relations Board with comments.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Hawaii Labor Relations Board will generally stand on its written testimony, providing comments as to the constitutionality of the bill, the board's jurisdiction, and concerns about the language possibly allowing a single exclusive representative who represents the majority of the bargaining units to unilaterally select the nominee for the seat representative of labor. I did want to just take a moment to talk about what the law currently is. Right now, the governor cannot nominate anyone to the seat representative of labor unless a majority of the public sector exclusive representatives have mutually agreed that that person is qualified to sit in the HLRB seat representative of labor. Therefore, if people are saying that the current law only provides unions the right to provide input or to say that labor is not included in the current process is incorrect. The current law does not allow the governor to nominate anyone who has not been selected and mutually agreed upon by a majority of the public sector exclusive representatives. So I just wanted to clarify that that is the current state of the law. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, we had a number of other entities submitting testimony, UPW in support, Hawaii Firefighters Association in support, SHOPO in support, Gerald Silva in opposition, and the State of Hawaii Office of Collective Bargaining in opposition. But no one else is here to testify today in person. Members, any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to HB 1447, which is relating to lifeguards. First up, we have the State of Hawaii DLNR in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members. Alan Carpenter, Assistant Administrator with the Hawaii State Parks Division. On behalf of Chair Case, the department stands on its written testimony in support, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have another testifier from DLNR, Kurt Cottrell in support. Or Alan, are you speaking for him as well?
Yeah, Kurt's in the next Zoom over. So yeah, it's just me today. Thanks.
Fair enough. Okay. In that case, next up, we have the Hawaii State Association of Counties in support.
Aloha, Chair Nakashima and Vice Chair Scott Matayoshi. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We did submit a written testimony and we are working with Mr. Okudara in trying to get this item passed. I guess I was nominated to speak on this item because for 18 years before becoming an elected representative, I worked as an ocean safety officer, leaving as a lieutenant with the Department of Fire and Public Safety for Maui County. And I just wanted to say, when the immunity was allowed, we were able to expand coverage to a lot of beaches that otherwise it would have been questionable if we expanded the coverage to because of its danger and the risk of frivolous lawsuits. being an ocean safety officer in Hawaiian waters is probably one of the most dangerous places to be a beach lifeguard, and it's a very uncontrolled situation. There's guidelines on how to save someone, but when you're in the impact zone, or if you're in 22 plus waves, a lot of times you just gotta rely on your instinct. And so I think that it was a mistake for the bill to be canceled completely. It was at a time when we were trying to make it permanent instead of just extending it. And the result was to stop the immunity, and we just really need it back. And it would help make Hawaii safer in this time when we're seeing so much ocean death along all of our coastlines. I'm ready to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. Members, that's the last testifier we have I'm sorry, we have a couple more testifiers on this bill. My apologies. Next up, we have the Hawaii Association for Justice in opposition.
Aloha Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, members of the committee. My name is Evan Oy, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Hawaii Association for Justice, or HHJ, in opposition. The immunity from civil liability covered under this bill is unnecessary, as Act 181 from 2018 already provides protections that this measure is trying to achieve. The lifeguards, just like all other state employees, are already protected by the State Tort Liability Act, which states that lifeguards are entitled to a defense by the AG's office for any civil action brought in any court against any county based on an alleged negligent or wrongful act or omission. Further, Hawaii law requires that all first responders, such as EMTs, police, and firefighters, perform their jobs with a reasonable care under the circumstances. Lifeguards should not be granted a carve-out to prevent them from being held responsible if they are negligent. There is no public policy justification for condoning negligent job performance by any government employee, nor is there any justification for treating lifeguards any different from other first responders who provide equally dangerous life-saving services. HHJ has always maintained that giving lifeguards immunity for performing their duties in a negligent manner is bad public policy and compromises safety for residents and tourists alike. To be clear, HHJ is not against lifeguards or lifeguard services. In fact, our lifeguards have provided exemplary service for over 100 years and are among the best and most dedicated in the world. HHJ is not aware of an instance when a lifeguard has lost personal assets because of services performed in the course and scope of their duties. In sum, unnecessarily immunizing lifeguards and counties from civil liability endangers our residents and visitors, leaving them with no recourse. For these reasons, HHJ respectfully opposes the bill and respectfully asks that it be deferred. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify and will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one individual here who's testifying in support, John Okudara.
Here.
Please proceed.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a bunch of things to say, but I think Tamara covered most of it because she actually experienced what this bill is supposed to do, to provide liability protection for lifeguards. This was the law since 2002 until 2017 when it was inadvertently repealed because it was part of Senate Bill 562, which was vetoed. And that bill contained the language to extend it a few more years. The bill before you was prepared using what we thought was good legal advice, that this looks like an amendment to the Good Samaritan law. But there's been some concern about the language in the Good Samaritan law about the expectation of remuneration. So I submitted testimony recommending that we do a House Draft 1 to go back to Act 170, 2002, to reenact Act 170, 2002. I submitted the testimony and the proposed draft as myself because with HSAC, I needed the approval of everybody, and I prepared the testimony and the draft yesterday. I didn't know whether I was going to get the approval by today, but now HSAC is also embracing that position, and we support the reenactment of Act 170, 2002. I'll be prepared to answer any questions, or if I'm sure Tamara can also answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, members. We have a number of individuals who submitted testimony, all in support, and a number of other county firefighter departments, all in support as well as the HGA in support and Ocean Safety Maui in support. Members, any questions?
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Rep. Ward.
Mr. Okudara, what is the experience rating that has brought some of these lifeguard behaviors to court? Does it rarely happen, or doesn't happen, or this is in case it does happen, but there's not an experience out there that says, well, this is getting out of control? Question mark.
You know, I've read through all the, as a result, there have been task forces to look at the efficacy of various water safety and beach safety type laws, particularly signage and warning of dangerous situations in the ocean. If you look at the Attorney General testimony from 2017, they recommended making it permanent because of the efficiency of the whole lifeguard program and the rigorousness of their training. The only opposition to this bill for years has been, you start with whatever they were called in 2002 until now, which is the Hawaii Association of Justice. There's no exemption for gross negligence and wanton acts by the lifeguards. So I think there's enough protection.
Let me rephrase the question is, when was the last time they brought a lifeguard into court because of negligent behavior or because they were not doing their job and they were sued, which this would obviously give them immunity for? I'm looking for the experience rating. When's the last time they've thrown a lifeguard into court because of what they've done?
You know, I couldn't find anything in a report. There was a mention, and I can't tell you where I found it, that there hasn't been a lifeguard brought in, any action brought against a lifeguard, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Any further questions?
I have a question. Vice Chair, I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rep. Okay, I just didn't see your video.
Yeah, so Mr. Okudara, to follow up to Rep. Ward, if you guys can find that information, that would be great. Councilmember Pelton, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, Pelton.
Pelton, aloha, how are you?
Aloha, good, thank you.
Thank you for all your service in the years that you were a lifeguard. I will tell you, and Mr. Okudara knows this, when I came in the legislature in 2006, this is one of the top bills that, one of the reasons why I left the county council to come to the state legislature, because I just didn't think it was fair. The beach liability and the liability, the lack of liability to the lifeguards, because you guys risk your life every single day when you're out there. Do you, I mean, I know the question was asked to Mr. Okudara, but as a lifeguard, do you remember any cases where the lifeguards have gone to court?
No, I've been in court a couple of times, and it wasn't due to any wrongdoing on our part. There was a case, I guess, against Yamaha in the steering mechanism, and we were witnesses. There were a couple other cases, but it's never been due to our negligence or omission. And just, in comparison to police and fire, when we drive skis, when I was working, we didn't have the support and the funding that we do today. And the recommendation was, don't ever turn off your jet ski, because if it doesn't start again, who's going to save you, And in using a jet ski to rescue people, we don't have the 2 to 3 person teams mandated like how fire department has. A fire rescue person would never be asked to drive a fire truck himself and put out the fire when the road is moving 20 to 30 feet over your head, So it's a very different scenario than fire or police working in the ocean environment. We've had to combat the appearance of the beach boy lifestyle, and we're much more professional in the 2000s, late 90s than in the past. We have drug testing, we have rigorous training standards that we need to pass every single year. That's not what police or fire do. They don't have to recertify their physical training to keep their job. So to compare us to other emergency personnel, when we don't have the funding, we don't have the staff, and we're held to a much higher standard, is, in my opinion, unfair.
Okay. So I think we all know in your job, in your line of work, whenever, if let's just say, God pray this doesn't happen, but when somebody drowns on a beach, a county beach or a state beach, oftentimes, they go through the grief and then they start looking to who they're going to sue. And that's what this bill is all about, is you start with, the low hanging fruit, and then you go to, somebody like the state or the county. So that's why this isn't enacted. And I will tell you that this is the first time ever since I've been here that there's only one in opposition, because the attorneys have chimed in. But this, to me, is common sense. We need to help the people that risk their lives every day on the beach. So thank you for what you do, and I appreciate HSAC's testimony.
Thank you.
Aloha. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any further questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to HB 2288 relating to land. This is a land transfer to DHHL. First up, we have DHHL in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi. We stand in strong support of this bill, and once again are concerned about the University of Hawaii, because they're good partners with us. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have AG's office with comments.
Afternoon, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, Craig Iha, Deputy Attorney General, offering comments. The Hawaii State Constitution does not allow university land to be transferred without Board of Regents approval. However, the legislature could still order the acquisition of the property through eminent domain, in which case the university would need to be paid just compensation for the taking. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the University of Hawaii in opposition. Michael, your sound is not coming through.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Aloha, Chair Nakashima, Vice Chair Matayoshi, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Shibata with the University of Hawaii's Office of Strategic Development and Partnership. The university stands on its written testimony in opposition of HB 2288 House Draft 1, as the property in question is owned by the university, and the university has current plans to utilize and develop the property. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide this testimony today and your consideration on this matter.
Thank you, members. That's all the testifiers we have present. We have two individuals who submitted testimony, one in support and one in opposition. And we have Kupuna for the Mo'opuna in support. We have one more. Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement also submitted testimony in support. Members, any questions?
Chair, I have a question.
Rep Board.
Thank you. To the University of Hawaii, who has jurisdiction over the land at the University of Hawaii?
So for the subject parcel in question, it's under the university, it's held in university trust, and disposition of that would be subject to the authority of the Board of Regents.
And who has the authority over the Board of Regents?
I don't know. I would have to follow up on that question, Representative. My understanding is I report to the Board of Regents.
I'm sorry, I'm leading the question. I mean, we set up the Board of Regents, we approve of the Board of Regents, we put it, blah, blah, blah. The point is, are you sure that this is a veil that cannot be pierced? It sounds a little bit odd in that if the legislature says this is a piece of property, whether it's eminent domain privately owned or within the system of government of which we have a lot of control over, How can you say you can't give this to DHHL without somebody doing a mother may I at the state legislative level?
What I would offer is we had our attorneys look at this as well as the testimony that just came in from the AG's office. So that would be consistent with the findings that we've done thus far.
Okay, would you agree that the university needs it more than the Department of Hawaiian Homes, which after 100 years has 2,800 people on the wait list, and 100 years has broken promises for those 50% Hawaiian and above? You guys have a better need than they have. That's what this bill is based upon.
Well, what I can offer is, we do have current plans for the property. Since coming on board last year, we've been working tirelessly to move on a plan that works for the community, the surrounding surrounding area, as well as the university. That's what I could offer.
Could you share what that plan is?
Yes. So we've been working on. We've done reports, and we will be. Our plan is shortly to be submitting a request for proposals to work with private partners to develop the site. We're looking at, and it's included in the testimony, in our testimony, but it's to collaborate with the university for research, innovation, learning opportunities in developing that parcel consistent with zoning and providing, further opportunities and revenue potential for the university.
So it would be another university building for research or for student classes, or you're a bit vague on this.
Yeah, so this would be working with the private side via a long-term ground lease where they would be developing the parcel, and they would collaborate with university programs for opportunities in health sciences, nursing program, culinary.
Okay, so you guys would be the landlord basically, because you said private sector is going to build it, and then you're going to be the beneficiaries through the academic side of it.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see putting it in the private sector for other than the Hawaiian homes as something that's laudable. I would hope that we'd bring that back to President Lasner and the others, that there is a higher need, a greater and higher use than something that is probably an addition to what otherwise is a rather luxurious land base that you guys have got. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Chair, for the ability to question whether this piece of land is worth more for the university than the Hawaiian community.
Yeah, and Report, you will be able to make a statement at later when we're
Yes.
going over the bills as well.
But they may go up, they may not hear me.
I'm sure they will. Members, any further questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to HB 1655 HD1 relating to special management areas. First up, we have the Department of Transportation in support. Okay, last call for the Department of Transportation. Next up, we have the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I do apologize. I just went and checked the Capitol website, and it looks like in error, the testimony for the prior House draft was submitted as our testimony. I'm just hoping to be able to offer to clarify that at this time. We do appreciate that the amendments made by the prior committee, which did include our recommended amendments into this House Draft 1. We've had a couple of conversations recently about certain government activities for exclusion of development, and we had 2 additional amendments to propose. Happy to submit that to the committee clerk, but the changes are to item 17, adding traffic control barriers as part of the definition there, as well as to item 19, adding installation of fencing with the new language to be protection of public utility infrastructure, or for, with the continuing existing language invasive species control or preservation, etc. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to follow up with an email to the committee clerk if that's possible. Apologize for the error.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the County of Maui Department of Planning in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We're in strong support of the existing bill, but did want to respectfully request reconsideration of two items that were included in the original proposal, consistent with what State Office of Planning, I apologize, OPSD just testified on. That would be the inclusion of the protection of public utility infrastructure with fencing to be added to item 19. And we're open to adding the vehicle control barriers to item 17. But as you'll see in my written testimony, there was an alternate proposal of a new item 21 to address the same issue. However, the committee chooses to accommodate that, that would be fantastic and would be greatly support the work that we do here on Maui County. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a number of other testifiers submitting testimony: County of Maui Department of Public Works, County of Maui County Council, the Honolulu Department of Planning and Permitting, and one individual, Ron Terry, all in support. Members, any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to HB 1670 HD1 relating to land use district boundaries. We have one testifier today, the State of Hawaii Land Use Commission, in support.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee. We stand on our testimony in support. We think this is much needed and will help to streamline government. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to HB 511 HD1 relating to real property. Members, we have no testifiers on this measure. So moving on to HB 1414 HD1 relating to abandoned vehicles. We have one testifier today, the Hawaii County of Mayors, in support. We have no testifiers today. Hawaii County of Mayors, last call. All right, the last bill on the agenda is HB 2076 relating to tobacco manufacturer qualified escrow funds. We have one testifier. I'm sorry, I should mention in the previous bill, we did have a number of people submitting testimony in support as well, and both individuals and departments. HB 2076 relating to tobacco manufacturer qualified escrow funds. We have one testifier today, Attorney General's office, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair. Can you hear me? This is Rich Stacy from the Attorney General.
Yep, please proceed.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity. This is a fairly straightforward bill, which we strongly support. And basically what this does is there are tobacco companies that under the master settlement agreement are required to put money into escrow accounts and they don't get it back for 25 years. The first ones they can start getting back are in 3 more years. But some of these companies go out of business and we do not have a mechanism right now for them to assign us their money if they want to just close the accounts, which are costly. And so what this does is a very simple tool that Hawaii would then be able to just take money from tobacco companies that want to give it to us. And it also would allow banks who manage the accounts, when there's an abandoned account where a tobacco company goes out of business and disappears, the bank can then close it out and it would go to the state and tobacco prevention. So we believe it's a win-win. The companies want to give money and this would make that an easier process. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you. We have 3 other testifiers that submitted testimony, the Hawaii Smokers Alliance and 2 individuals, all in opposition. Not present today though. Members, any questions?
I have a question, Chair.
Yep, Board.
Sorry, Mr. Stacy. Who are these companies that you said they want to give us money? That sounds creative, but can you name them? And do they have any money?
Well, so right now, there are 25 accounts that have been in existence for up to since 2000, after the MSA went into effect. There's over $700,000 in those accounts. The companies that are still in business will start getting some of that money back. One company about 3 years ago named Gudang Garam reached out around the country to give money back, and several states were able to take money back. Hawaii has money in that account, and we want this tool, and we will go seek them out and see if they're willing to give us the money. But California and Oregon, we've talked to recently, they enacted statutes like these. California says it's very useful. They've received figures in six-figure amounts from various companies because they don't, these escrow accounts are expensive to maintain. We have to monitor them. So what this does, it allows that to terminate early, and the companies, some of them actually just want to say, wash their hands of it and give us the money.
Excuse my ignorance, but is this a sequel to the tobacco settlement, or is it something that is another administrative way of extending it? Or I'm not clear on what the tobacco settlement was and what this is.
Okay, this comes out of the MSA, the tobacco settlement. So basically, companies that sell cigarettes but that did not participate in the MSA have to put money in the escrow accounts to level the playing field between them and the bigger companies that put money into the MSA. So these companies, to make it a level playing field, have to basically put money into accounts that they can't use for 25 years. So it does come out of the MSA, and it's only specific companies that are not the big boys like RJR or Philip Morris. These are the smaller ones that might be in other countries. But some of them, like I said, we have 25 accounts right now we're monitoring. There's over $700,000 in those. Most of that might not come to Hawaii, but some of it might. The money with Gudang Garam is over 100,000. So it would be nice to, if they don't want it, that we would get it.
And how long would this last?
As long as they're NPMs, the escrow requirements under the MSA just sort of go on forever. But if you sell, for instance, in the year 2000, you put money in the escrow account, and 25 years later, you can get the money that was related to 2000 back. So it takes a long time. So none of this has been released yet. It has not been 25 years since this started.
And how much are we getting from the tobacco settlement every year now?
Hawaii Direct.
Down, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Isn't it going down?
Actually, I think because of the pandemic, I think in the mainland, the money went up. So we actually got about 37.5 million. Last year, we were expected to get about 34 million. So we still get a fair amount. Between cigarette tax stamps and the actual MSA distribution, we've received over $3 billion since 1998.
And with this one, it's going to be smaller, but it's worthwhile to go after. Is the bottom line, I guess, of what you're saying.
Yes, we think it's a very useful tool, and other states have said the same.
Good. Thank you for being aggressive to save taxpayers' money.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any other questions? If not, we'll recess for decision making.
reconvening the Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs, Thursday, February 10, 2022. Conference room 325. Members, we have a number of bills for decision making. House Bill 1580, criminal procedure. Chair's recommendation is to adopt the AG's amendments and effect date the bill to January 1st, 2022. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1580 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ichiyama.
Aye.
Rep. Kobayashi. Excused. Rep. Lopresti. Excused. Rep. Lowen.
Aye.
Rep. McKelvey.
Aye.
Rep. Nakamura.
Aye.
Rep. Takumi.
Aye.
Rep. Dodd.
Aye.
Rep. Tokioka.
Aye.
Rep. Ward.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 1571, COVID vaccinations. Chair's recommendation is that we create an exception for healthcare workers filling out vaccine cards in case they inadvertently make a mistake while filling the card out. Also adopt recommended changes from the Attorney General to make this criminal offense as opposed to a lesser offense. And in the description, we will strike churches from the list of places that may be involved. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1571 HD1 with amendments noted previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 2187 related to the Board of Regents. I will note that the bill does already contain a defective effective date. Recommendation is to move this as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair unamended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 2187 HD1 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1560, House Draft 1, amending the minimum qualifications of Board of Education members. Chair notes the need for technical amendments, need for clarity, consistency, and style. The bill is already defect dated, so we will pass it out as amended. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1560 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 1775, education. So as I noted, we did pass out amendments for this. Other technical and non-substantive amendments for clarity, style, and consistency. Maybe Rep. Ichiyama, can you explain this bill again?
Sure, thank you, Chair. So the changes in the proposed House Draft 2 were to delete language that applies to HRS 368D to all students and employees. It deletes various definitions to address the concerns from UH and DOE about potential conflicts with federal law. It also clarifies the reporting from UH, DOE, and the Public Charter School Commission. Clarifies that the Public Charter School Commission, rather than each charter school, all 37 of them submit individual reports to legislature. So we would just get one report. Deletes a section on prohibited conduct on a covered educational program activity and related language. It moves from section 2 to section 3, current language in HRS 368D that authorizes a organization or association to bring claims on behalf of a person. Clarifies the state law protects all individuals, not just limited to students, same as the federal Title IX law. It also gives resources to University of Hawaii and DOE to carry out the intent of this measure.
Okay. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, if not, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1775 HD1 with amendments noting previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? The chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 1789, collective bargaining. The Hawaii Labor Relations Board establishes the labor position. This bill already contains a effective defective date. And other technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1789 HD1 with amendments noting previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, House Bill 1447. This is the lifeguard measure. We did distribute a proposed HD1 as circulated. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1447 with amendments noting previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
House Bill 2288, transfer of land to the Department of Hawaiian Homes. Bill already contains a defective effective date. Recommendations to pass this out as is. Members, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Chair.
The power one. Not then, Vice Chair, as amended.
The chair's recommendation is to pass HB 2288 HD1 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. HB 1655, special management areas. Recommendation is to adopt the City and County of Honolulu, the County of Maui, and the OPS amendments to the measure. Bill already contains a defective effective date. Members, any questions or comments?
Chair, whoops, sorry. 1655.
Representative McKelvey.
Yeah, 1655, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to have to vote no on the measure. This bill, one of the motivations behind the county is that they went ahead and gave approval for what amounts to a hotel that is being built in a residential neighborhood. And that this would provide them with the exemption for an SMA. And right now there's a contested court action because they issued an SMA in violation. So I'll have to go no on the measure for now, with all due respect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1655 HD1 with amendments noted the previously excused members and the no vote by Representative McKelvey. Any members voting with reservations? Any other members voting no? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. HB 1670, Land Use Commission boundary disputes. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as is, as the bill already contains a defective effective date. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as is.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1670 HD1 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations?
WR,
members. Rep. McKelvey voting with reservations. Any other members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. HB 511, we will defer this measure. HB 1414, House Draft 1, abandoned vehicles. The bill already contains a defective effective date. Recommendations to pass this out as is. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair, as is.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 1414 HD1 as is, noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. HB 2076, the tobacco manufacturer qualification escrow funds. Chair recommend notes the need for technical amendments, need for clarity, consistency, and style. Also adding a defect date, January 1st, 2222. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair as amended.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 2076 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. And members, finally, from our deferred from our February 8th meeting, decision making only, House Bill 2197 relating to gambling. Representative Matayoshi.
So we're going to be making a number of amendments to this. The no probation language is getting struck, so probation will be permitted. We are going to keep the language, moving it from misdemeanor to C to felony C and felony C to felony B. And we're also going to be adding these two violations as to the list of not being eligible for deferred acceptance of guilt pleas. I'm sorry, there was one more, Chair, that's slipping my mind right now.
Sorry.
I went over probation.
Had the negligent state of mind, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the state of mind. So instead of moving it down to negligent, we're just going to keep it at knowingly. That's all.
Okay, members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, as amended, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation is to pass HB 2197 with amendments noting the previously excused members. Any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. We are adjourned. Thank you.